Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really heavy but absolutely crucial topic, the crime of belonging, identity, and persecution in Leer. We're going to unpack the chilling reality of how geography and identity can literally be weaponized during a conflict. You know, we often think of where we're from as just a spot on a map, right? But as we're about to see with Leer County in South Sudan, a place of origin can become something entirely different.
Let's move into Section 1, a dangerous question. Think about a simple, everyday interaction that most of us completely take for granted. Where are you from? It's the ultimate icebreaker. But what happens when the answer to that question puts your very survival at risk? The source material we're looking at today shows how the realization that your identity is dangerous rarely arrives like some dramatic movie scene. It actually sneaks up on you, quietly. In most places, your identity is a point of pride. It tells this rich, vibrant story of your culture, your lineage, where you belong. But in certain environments, that concept is darkly inverted. Your identity becomes evidence. The simple act of saying where you're from invites suspicion, exclusion, or even direct violence. Basically, what normally represents heritage instantly becomes a target on your back if your answer happens to be Leer. Survivor testimonies show us that the first memory of this exclusion isn't usually a violent event. It's a pattern. It's these probing questions: which area, which people. Over time, these totally ordinary questions evolve into dangerous filter mechanisms. If the answer is Leer, the whole tone of the conversation shifts to this quiet hesitation. The person isn't an individual anymore. They're reduced to a place, and suddenly that place is seen as a problem.
Section 2. Origins of the conflict.
So to really understand why a hometown became so dangerous, we have to look objectively at the political map back on December 15th, 2013. That's when a massive political dispute within South Sudan's ruling party escalated into an armed confrontation right in the capital city of Juba. This fractured the entire nation into two main camps: forces loyal to President Kiir and forces loyal to Dr. Riek Machar. By the end of 2013, this violence had spread like wildfire through Jonglei, Unity, and Upper Nile states, devastating civilians caught in the crossfire. The immediate macro-scale fallout was just staggering. As the fighting spread, entire towns and villages were left in ruins. Over 2.3 million South Sudanese were displaced. To break that down a bit, about 1.7 million became internally displaced within the country, and another 600,000 had to flee and seek refuge in neighboring countries. And of course, this rapidly cascaded into a massive humanitarian crisis. Everyday survival was totally upended. An estimated 2.8 million people, to put that into perspective, that was nearly a quarter of the country's entire population at the time, were left facing acute food and nutrition insecurity. It's an immense disruption, and it set the stage for highly localized, intense regional conflicts. Section 3. The targeting of Leer. Now, let's zoom in on Unity states, specifically looking at why Leer County was targeted so heavily. Leer is the home county of the opposition leader Dr. Riek Machar. It's populated predominantly by the Nuer community, who are historically cattle herders, and the area has a history of rebel activity. Because of those specific demographics and political ties, Leer's geography was hyper-politicized right out of the gate. Being from Leer suddenly meant you were presumed to be a rebel sympathizer, completely regardless of your actual personal beliefs. For 2 solid years, Leer was caught in this brutal tug of war. In early 2014, government and allied forces pushed south into the county, leading to targeted killings and destruction. Then the opposition recaptured it in April 2014, which brought a brief window of stability where aid groups like MSF and the Red Cross could actually return. But by April 2015, a massive government offensive kicked off. Control of Leer swung back and forth, leaving the civilian population totally trapped in a highly strategic battleground. Moving to Section 4, Evidence of Collective Punishment. So what did these military movements actually mean for civilians on the ground? Well, the personal toll is heavily documented. One survivor's childhood memory perfectly captures the terror. They recall soldiers arriving and just shouting, "You are all rebels." Think about how terrifying that is. It didn't matter if you were a kid, an elder, or totally disconnected from the fighting. The entire civilian populace was collectively penalized just because of where they lived. And what's deeply sobering is that these stories of fear are backed up by undeniable institutional proof. We aren't just relying on memories here. We have the hard data. UN satellite imagery from early February 2014 literally shows the systematic, targeted destruction of Leer town, revealing over 1,500 destroyed homes. Relief agencies reported over 6,300 households burnt while forces were in control. The actual architecture of the community was systematically dismantled. Impartial international observers like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch recorded severe violations during those 2015 offensives. We are talking about entire villages set on fire, widespread sexual violence, and the targeted looting of cattle. And remember, cattle aren't just property there. They are a primary source of nutrition and carry immense cultural and economic value for the Nuer community. The reports describe these acts as a deliberate collective punishment, a reprisal meant to send a warning to the whole community. Section 5. The crime of belonging. This brings us to the absolute core concept of this explainer: how systemic violence fundamentally reshaped what it means to be from Leer. It became the crime of belonging. What does that mean? It means belonging to Leer was transformed into a criminal identity. And it's vital to note this didn't happen through some formal law. There's no written statute saying the people of Leer are guilty. Instead, their identity was criminalized by normalized patterns of violence, political narratives, and sustained silence against the Dot community. As we've explored today, this troubling reality stands on three intertwined pillars. First, you have the personal testimonies, the lived experiences of fear, labeling, and exclusion. Second, the strategic political framing of the region, where a physical place is just completely equated with military opposition. And third, the institutional evidence, the satellite imagery and human rights reports that document the sheer scale of the destruction. Together, they illustrate exactly how a place becomes a crime. I want to leave you with one final uncomfortable thought to chew on. When your heritage and your home are turned into evidence against you, the social fabric of a community is deeply torn. Seriously, what happens to a society when place becomes a crime simply because of where you belong?